Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. The cost of fixing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is mushrooming. These two brainchilds of the liberal left bought or guaranteed 3/4 of all U.S. home loans in 2008. Depending on how many ill-qualified borrowers default on their loans, Bloomberg Financial News estimates the cost of keeping Fannie and Freddie solvent will be at least $160 billion and more probably as much as $1 trillion after the biggest bailout in American history. And this is after the other biggest bailout of the loan industry in history. Fannie and Freddie, now 80% owned by U.S. taxpayers, have already drawn $145 billion from an unlimited line of government credit. This incredible line of credit was granted to ensure that home buyers can get loans while the private housing finance industry hoards the bailout money it got from the last round of bailouts to pay themselves back for their losses. Did you get that? The bailout funds already taken by the private housing finance industry has been used to repay themselves. It was not used to provide economic aid for the people who are in upside-down loans from a collapsed housing industry. A collapse, by the way, that was caused by forcing loans to be made to people who could not afford them. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac owned or guarantee more than half the nation's $10.7 trillion in residential mortgage debt. The bad loans they issued at the insistence of the Congressional Banking Committee Chairman Barney Frank are still on the books. This has resulted in an unprecedented number of foreclosures that continues to rise daily. The Congressional Budget Office calculated in August 2009 that the companies would need $389 billion in federal bailouts through 2019 to cover the bad loans they've already made. And this bad news only gets worse. According to one expert quoted by Bloomberg, housing prices could decline by as much as another 20% before they stabilize. The median home price in the U.S. had already fallen by 25% since its peak in July of 2006. Congressman Barney Frank and the bailout bunch say that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are too big to let fail. You heard that before? Their proposed solution is to give them unlimited bailout money to turn them back into sustainable businesses. You know, that's like suggesting concrete life preservers as a way of preventing another Titanic disaster. The Federal National Mortgage Association, known as Fannie Mae, was created by Congress in 1938. Its purpose was to expand home ownership by Americans. It did this by purchasing mortgages from banks and other lenders and bundling them into bonds for investors. The Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, known as Freddie Mac, was established in 1970. It was formed, if you can believe this, to give the impression that Fannie Mae had a little competition. The Community Reinvestment Act, pushed through the Congress during the Clinton administration, required lenders to extend loans to low-income and welfare families. For-profit banks couldn't afford to touch these risky loans, so they were guaranteed by Fannie Mae and Freddie. Representative Frank's banking committee called them subprime loans and allowed the government to buy up $500 billion worth for face value. The bad loans were also financed by selling them to foreign investors, especially China, who now holds about $1 trillion in bad paper and expects Uncle Sam to make good on it. Despite that, the Treasury Secretary, Timothy Geithner, vows to keep Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in business for as long as, you got it, your money holds out. But even Geithner doesn't know how long that will be. As he told Congress in March, the government still doesn't know how far in the red the two government-financed mortgage companies really are. The number of loans more than 3 months past due has risen every quarter for more than a year, hitting 5.5% at Fannie as of the end of March and 4.1% at Freddie. And the numbers just keep rising. Almost $2 trillion of the loans were made in states with the nation's highest foreclosure rates: California, Florida, Nevada, and Arizona. To make matters worse, more than $1 trillion in loans were issued in 2006 and 2007 when real estate values were inflated to their most unrealistic high. These mortgages, on which borrowers owe more than 90% of a property's value, are now only worth $402 billion, about 40% of their finance value. The Republicans tried to add onto the Democrats' financial reform bill an amendment that would phase out the publicly owned Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Former Senate Banking Committee Chairman Christopher Dodd dismissed the proposed amendment as simplistic. He said, "We need to have a housing finance system in place. If you pull that rug out at this particular juncture, I don't know what the particular result will be. We're caught in this quandary." The fact is, Senator Dodd is in a quandary because it's obvious what the result of pulling the rug out at this juncture would be. His Senate Banking Committee would lose its control over the mortgage industry and the vast sums of lobby money earmarked to influence banking legislation. The result would probably be a stable mortgage industry and a more honest Congress. You know, for guys like Barney Frank and Christopher Dodd, that would be a quandary indeed. You know, when you try to take that much money out of the control of a congressman, it's like trying to take a pacifier out of the mouth of a baby. Now is the time. You may not have another. Well, that's it for tonight, folks. God willing, I'll see you next week.
You've been watching the Hal Lindsey Report. To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Hal Lindsey Media Ministries, P.O. Box 470-470, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74147. You can also support this ministry online. Visit HalLindsey.com or call 1-888-RAPTURE.